Would you like to watch some home designs? I would like to watch some home designs. Top 15 weird home designs by top fives.
Hey guys, you know multi-million dollar mansions, prefabricated apartments, and futuristic
Is this
homes
made? Was
lodged
that
right
made
into
of
the side of a
ice?
cliff. It seems like designers and architects have taken things to a new level with these
Upside
funky-looking
down
house
house.
designs. So join me for today's video.
I've seen
We're
an
going to
upside
count down
down
the
building
15
somewhere in
weirdest home designs in
Quezon
the
City.
world. Number 15, the toilet
Number
house.
15.
Alright, kicking off this
The
list is a
toilet
home that
house.
perhaps would better serve as a number 1.
There's legit a giant shit there. Toilet house indeed. And it is. Why is it that a house shaped like a toilet looks good? Why does it look pretty good? It looks like a spaceship. If that piece of shit wasn't there, it looks like an okay house.
Maybe even number 2. That's because it's shaped like a toilet. The story behind Korea's toilet house is a strange one.
Mr.
The
Toilet.
owner, Sim Jae-duk, is said to have been born in his grandmother's bathroom, and since then he decided to dedicate the rest of his life to water conservation and improving global access to clean, efficient, and working sanitation, which would include toilets. He's so dedicated to his
Okay.
mission that he became the chairman of the World Toilet Association and built this home in the shape of a porcelain throne in 2007.
There's a World Toilet Association. What?
His home cost him over $1 million to create and remains the only toilet-shaped house in the world to this day. But this weird home is more than just a pretty face, because it's been designed to harvest rainwater, which is incorporated into the home and helps flush the 3 toilets inside. Sadly though, Sim Jae-duk died in 2009, just 2 years after he built his dream home, and so it was donated to the
toilet
government,
house.
who made it into a museum they like to call the Toilet Theme Park. Statues and sculptures of toilets have been erected around the property, and you can even buy fake poop in the gift shop.
Fake poop in the gift shop. Cool. Also, this shit right here seems so unsanitary because that's cloth. Like you poop and the rim is cloth. It's like, ugh.
Number 14, the car-shaped house. Another home designed to look like something completely different is this car-shaped house in Salzburg, Austria.
Whoa.
This 4-walled four-wheeler was built in 2004 by Manfred Volkreiter and can sleep a family of
This
4.
predated
or,
the Cars
one in
movie.
each seat. But the fact that the architect even got approval for this structure is pretty amazing. Because not only is the home the only one of its kind on the block, but it's also right next to a nature preserve. Just imagine
looks
knocking on the driver's side door to
pretty
ask
cool.
to borrow a cup of sugar. But despite looking like a car, the car house is fuel efficient, featuring natural ventilation and lighting, as well as tight insulation and shading.
I like it.
The home facade is just for show, though, because when you go inside, it just becomes a typical home with large windows. I guess you could even forget what the exterior looks like for a bit. But what possessed Mr. Volkreiter
I don't like the
to design
stairs,
such a
though.
weird home? Well, it seems as though he just felt like it. He's not a car enthusiast, nor does he seem to be some sort of eccentric. All that really matters is that the car is built
Hey.
up to code.
Sometimes artists and designers just go on a whim. Sometimes you just think, what if I made a house in the shape of a car? And then you just do it. It is what it is. He was probably curious if it was structurally sound or something. And then he did it.
And that it won't drive away. Number 13.
Looks pretty cool.
S-House. It's important to remember that weird is
Gonna get a house shaped like a block of cheese. That's a lot of windows. And isn't that just like a triangle house? Or a block of cheese is... What is a block of cheese? Square? Rectangular? That's just a building with circular windows. And it's yellow.
isn't always bad, and the S-House in Japan is the perfect example of that. But make no mistake, this is still
What the
one
fuck?
unconventional design because it would be like living in a giant fishbowl. Designed by renowned architect Yasuke Karasawa, the S-House is meant to blend philosophy and architecture together into one single-family
No
home
shot,
in the
there's
Saitama
no
Prefecture
walls.
of Japan. The design of the home is said to show off the complicated networking of humans with one another and humans and nature, eventually twinning together to meet in the middle.
There's
So
no
while everything
walls.
certainly has its own place in the world, at the end of the day,
Can you imagine how hot that is during the summer? There's no ventilation because there's not ventilation. There's no what's the word I'm looking for? Fuck. It's like the stuffing in the walls and also on the roof to help your house be warm during the cold temperatures, insulation. Yes, I was like ventilation. It's not ventilation, but insulation. Yes, that one. Where's the insulation? There's no walls.
Day, it's all connected. But while all of that does sound nice, like so
It's
many
gonna be
others on this
so
list of
hot or
funky
so
abodes,
cold.
the S house is the only structure like it in the area, so there's no doubt that some neighbors might find it to be one giant eyesore. And speaking of glass, the walls and windows here are one and the same, so hopefully
It's
the
not
owners
really an
invest in some
eyesore. It's
extra
very
long,
pretty
extra tall
design-wise.
curtains. Otherwise, everyone's gonna have front row seats to the peep show, morning, noon, and night.
Yeah, it's very pleasing design-wise. It's very minimalist. It looks really good, but bruh, it's just not practical. Also, the lack of privacy is fucked. You wake up in the morning, you look out your window, your neighbor POV. Wake up in the morning, look out their window, you see this house, you see the couple living there, and they're banging in the shower. Free porn? Question mark. It's just
Number 12. Chateau d'eau. Converting old water towers into homes isn't necessarily a new idea, and the possibilities for the interior can be virtually endless once you've gutted the place. But that doesn't mean you can't touch up the exterior as well.
hey yo,
But
that
don't tell
looks
that to the
cool.
owner
This looks cool. This looks like a whole ass castle tower.
of Chateau d'eau, a converted water tower in Belgium, because they really skimped on the curb appeal. While the former water tower holds a single-family home, the outside is still made with ugly brick, and the overall shape makes it look like you're staring at one giant ice cream cone, but without the ice cream.
Don't care.
Originally the design of architect Mauro Brigham, this 100-foot-high tower was built somewhere between 1938 and 1941.
This looks
and
sick.
has 6 stories. The water tower is in pretty rough shape.
It's 6 stories, dude. That's annoying though. And the way you get up is through a fucking ladder. Never mind. I mean, it looks sick from the outside, but if the way you get up and down floor is through a ladder.
Shape when Brigham found
Nah.
it, so renovation and restoration began in 2007. Apparently, much of the original concrete was damaged, and so the columns were repaired and brick joints were totally removed and replaced, with windows added. And while no one is denying his impressive work, he could have at least given the exterior a better paint job.
This looks great
Number
though.
11. The Lego House. Think back to when you were a kid playing with Legos. What was the coolest thing you ever made? What was the
Nothing.
biggest? How about a home big enough for someone to live in? Well, that's exactly what James May did. When deciding to build this
Are
home, May
Legos
threw
structurally
conventional materials
sound?
like wood, brick, and steel out the window and opted for 3.3 million Lego bricks instead. But the
Million?
story ain't so simple, because a home made entirely of Lego bricks would collapse soon after being built.
Oh yeah, there
The
it
foundation
is.
and skeleton were built with the bricks going around the husk. So, other than children, who would ever want to live there? Not even James May was willing to move in, but that didn't stop him from looking for a buyer. The Legoland theme park actually considered purchasing the structure, but the deal didn't go through after they decided moving costs would be more trouble than it was worth. The house would have to be disassembled in chunks only to be reassembled at the park. And in the end, May's Lego house was dismantled one brick at a time, and all 3.3 million
No.
were donated to charity. Number
Sad.
10. The Starburst House. This next house looks like the home
Okay, I like it.
of an eccentric recluse in the middle of the California desert. This Starburst house not only looks futuristic because of its literal exploding star design, but it also takes the future of our environment
It
into
looks
account.
cool.
At this rate, we really don't know what the planet's going to look like 1,000 or even 100 years from now.
It looks
But if
like
we make a few simple
cannons. Oh, they're made up out of it's made out of containers. Container vans. That's just like glued or welded together, I guess. Pretty good.
tweaks to our lifestyle, then the future may not all be that bad. So the design team behind this home of the future, Whitaker Studios, decided to put together a home made entirely of old shipping containers.
Yeah.
21 to be exact, and painted them a bright white, which is a stark contrast to the somewhat ominous surroundings. The Starburst
Why was that bed pointed outward? And it was occupying the whole. This bed is pointed to the window and it's occupying the whole. How do you get on the bed?
bright white, which is a stark contrast to the
Bad
somewhat
interior
ominous
design.
surroundings. The Starburst house sits on a large 90-acre plot of land just outside of Joshua Tree and was built for Chris Hanley, the producer of some cult classic films like Buffalo 66 and American Psycho. And with the type of
Seems
films
aight for
Hanley's
you?
backing, it would make sense that he likes the isolation that
It
this
just
house
didn't make
provides.
sense for me.
And because many of the shipping containers point straight up at the sky, he's got some killer views of the final frontier every night.
It's
Number
very cool
9,
though.
Belgian rock face home. Now, this
Just
is
needs a
one
smaller
weird-looking
bed
home
probably.
design.
Or a
Found in
smaller bed
Belgium,
frame.
This house looks like it was shoved right into the rock. Or maybe they had the home already built and just dropped a rock on it. There are plenty of breathtaking homes in the rocky and mountainous areas that have been carved right into the rock face, but this one just fails on every level. And while the interior of the home may look fine, this rock face home
The
seems
frame
like
has
a real
stairs?
eyesore
I
to the
didn't
rest
see.
of the neighbors, or I'm sure all live in normal homes. And whatever the owner's intentions are is anybody's guess. But the even bigger question is, when the time comes, how do they plan to sell it? And the rocks are aligned just perfectly for a burglar or two to scale the rock face, open a window, and walk right in. Despite the materials used for this Belgian abode, this house definitely does
Where
not
is it?
rock.
Oh.
Number 8. The chemosphere. The
Wait.
1960s were a wild time. The youth were trying out new forward
That was
ways
a
of
cool
thinking.
house.
The civil rights movement was in full effect in the United States, and people were experimenting with all sorts of things. Even
This reminds me of the Jurassic Park thing. But there was a structure that they were in when the dinosaur was trying to kill them. That it looks exactly like this one. Reminds me you of Men in Black because it looks like a UFO. I couldn't find it. I don't know how to describe it on Google either to get it to search for me.
architecture. The chemosphere was designed as a modern abode in Los Angeles, California in
It's like a
1960
tree
by
house. It
John
looks really
Lochner.
nice.
At the time, Lochner was applauded by critics and experts for the octagonal design, but the rest of us were left scratching our heads and shaking in fear because this chemosphere seems to float in the air over the hills below. The chemosphere looks kind of like a UFO trying to land in the rough terrain of LA's hills. So, what's going on here?
How is it
When
structurally
Lochner surveyed
sound?
the area that the chemosphere sits on, he was given two options. Level out the sloped land, which would take too much time and even more money, not to mention hurt the ecosystem. Or just build a single 30-foot column to support the house, which is what gives it its hovering appearance. He obviously chose the latter, which only cost about 30 grand. And while Lautner would assure you that the house is fine, it's hard not to be left shaking in your boots a
I'm
little
not
once you're
sure,
inside
though.
this 8-sided abode. And despite the fear, the chemosphere is now worth well over $3 million.
I have a fear of heights. Like, I have a fear of falling, not the fear of heights. I'm fine being really high, but I'm not fine being like on the edge of something. So I feel like I have a fear of when when you're on like the edge here and you jump, I feel like it will shake and maybe, collapse. I don't know. It's an irrational fear, I guess.
About 30 grand. And while Lautner would assure you that the house is fine, it's hard not to be left shaking in your boots a little once you're inside this 8-sided abode. And despite the fear, the chemosphere is now worth well over $3 million.
Damn.
Number 7.
For an
the
old
Steel
house?
In Lubbock, Texas, in the middle of what feels like nowhere, is a large dark brown steel structure that looks like it's been exposed to the elements for far too long. The
It's
famous
rust?
steel house was built from about 120 tons of steel over the course of 23-year construction period. And since this clearly is not your average single-family home or
That's
condo,
so hot
you can bet the steel
to
house was
live
also
in- to
built
live
with a
in.
funky shape. Designed by architect Robert Bruno because he felt bored and disappointed with the flat landscape, he built his house to spruce up the desolate area a bit. Another project that initially started small, he began constructing a one-story house but couldn't stop there. Many adjustments were made. Walls were broken down, additions were built, and the end result gave him something a little bigger than he had bargained
looks like
for.
a pig.
The inside of his home does look cool,
looks like
though, and it
Pochita.
has some great views of the surrounding area. But unless you're an artist looking for an interesting house, most people may not understand the overall aesthetic of Ransom Canyon's pig-shaped steel house.
Oh, it
Number
is
6,
really pig
the
shaped.
crocodile house. Alright, next on the list of strange home designs is something you can really sink your teeth into. In the former capital of the Ivory Coast is one wacky-looking house that's made to look like a giant stone crocodile, complete with eyes and big teeth ready to take a bite out of any would-be intruders.
That's a
Construction
house?
on this home began in the mid-2000s and is the brainchild of artist Musa Kahlo. But Kahlo sadly passed away just 2 months before the crock was completed, and
Oh
so their
man.
apprentice, Theory Atta, took on the task of finishing the house. But not only that, Atta decided to make this house their home and quickly moved in. But despite being made of stone, the crocodile still has windows and a bed and is totally livable. And yeah, this crocodile home may be minimalist and not as extravagant as what many Westerners are used to, but it's also important to remember that the region and the neighborhood aren't the wealthiest. So is the crocodile the best rendition of the animal? Absolutely not. But sometimes you gotta work with what you got.
But
And plenty of
why?
people still drop by to feast their eyes on this unorthodox house, which always puts a smile on their faces. Number 5. The Winchester Mystery House. A lot can be said about the Winchester Mystery House in San Jose, California. So much so that it's been the subject of books, films, and television shows, and it's even the setting of a
It looks very
tabletop
cool.
game. It's as famous as it is infamous, and rightly so, because it's one of the weirdest houses in history, both
Wait, why?
inside and out. It all began in the mid-1800s when the Winchester repeating rifle was used to cut down the American indigenous population in the following years. The weapon quickly became known as the gun that won the West. The treasurer of the company, William
So
Winchester,
many doors,
would die of
true.
tuberculosis, and his wife, Sarah Winchester, would inherit his immense fortune. But with that fortune came the
It's a whole
alleged
mansion.
ghosts, spirits, and demons left in the wake of the Winchester death. One of the wealthiest women in the world
Oh,
was
it's haunted.
and so she built her home to keep the spirits away. She would continue building the home until she died in 1922. There are stained glass windows with nothing but concrete behind them, stairs leading to walls, doors to secret passages, and occasionally the home's exterior where death
There's a
and
video
dismemberment
video
are just
made
one
about
false
this.
step away. It's one of the most popular tourist attractions on the US West Coast, and it's pretty hard to believe that anyone could have possibly called this place home. Number 4.
Bro, it's huge.
Ghost House. Not to be confused with a giant marshmallow that was
Where
left out in the
host
sun for
house?
too long. The Ghost House in Delma, France was built with the idea of capturing your attention from the
It's
road.
in France.
And despite the name, the Ghost
Croissant.
House technically isn't a house, but a gallery and visitor center that just so happens to stick out like a sore thumb. Designed by 2 French architects, the building that is now the Ghost House has an incredibly rich history. It served as a school, a prison, and even a funeral home, so perhaps its ghostly history inspired its otherworldly look. But the story behind the home's name is just as unique. It was thought up by the French-American painter and sculptor Marcel Duchamp, who thought that adding the words guest and host would equal ghost. So now that the Ghost House is a visitor center, it really takes
That guy who came up with the name, I feel like we have the same brain cell. I would do that shit too. And then every person I know would hate me for it.
on the role of all 3. The art center is the host. The
And I'd
visitors
feel
are the
like
guests,
I'm so
and, well,
smart
the
for
design
doing
makes the
that,
structure look
for
like a ghost oozing
making up
ectoplasm,
that
ready to be busted by Winston Venkman Ray.
that name.
Well, the entire house was covered in polystyrene blocks, which is what gives it its chunky, mushy form. From there, designers covered the building in
Marshmallow.
2 coats of polyurethane resin to make it waterproof.
Why is
and
it
then
not a
simply painted it
marshmallow
white
house?
to add the finishing touch. And so if you're ever driving in that area and see this strange-looking structure, be sure to stop in, because it's now serving as the area's visitor center.
The host.
Number 3. Shark Attack. You can really sink your teeth into this next entry. The official name of this home is Untitled 1986, but many local residents of New High Street and Heading
Bruh. This is the aftermath of Sharknado. This is just a shark that was caught in the tornado. And then it got launched into this house. Sharknado actually happened in 1986.
Oxford just call it the Headington Shark. And if you can't already tell by looking at it, the structure is a giant shark diving headfirst into the roof of a normal house. Is it the remnant of Sharknado?
Oh,
no,
shit.
Instead, it's the work of the home's owner and local radio presenter, Bill Hine.
What the fuck? Let's go. Same brain.
He commissioned the piece in the year of its namesake, taking inspiration from the sound of the American warplanes flying above the city on their way to Libya. In short, this is a punk rock protest against war, and to make matters even more prolific, Heine installed the shark without the city's permission. Designed by sculptor John Buckley and constructed by Anton Castiel, the 25-foot-long, 440-pound fiberglass beast is said to represent the feeling of helplessness a human might experience as a hole is ripped through their roof by something so deadly. It is a bold statement, made even stronger by the fact that Heine had it put up on the 41st anniversary of the dropping of the atomic bomb on Nagasaki. Number 2. Nautilus Sea.
The meaning behind it is something I would not get by looking at it. Because the meaning behind it that I got from looking at it was Sharknado. But maybe it's just my my one brain cell brain.
Shell. She sells seashells by the seashore. It's not just a timeless limerick, but advice to homeowners everywhere. Well, maybe not everywhere, but certainly the designer of the Nautilus house in Mexico. This is another
Nautilus.
great example of something
Ugh.
weird also being something pretty
My voice
amazing.
cracked.
The shell of the home is designed by famed Mexican architect Javier Senocian. But this dwelling is more than just a pretty face. It's also quite literally built to last, as it can withstand most earthquakes, and it's totally maintenance-free. It's an amazing blend of nature and all, but that comes at a bit of a price. It's not the greatest use of space, and it's pretty short on storage space considering curved
Oh,
walls
because
don't
of
really allow
the
for cupboards and
the shape.
closets. But it is hard to be jealous of the family that lives in this place. The Nautilus is made using special techniques called ferrocement construction, where a frame of steel-reinforced chicken wire is coated with concrete to allow for the rounded natural curves. The interior is just as spectacular as the facade, full of
Looks
spiral
great.
circles and rooms that mimic the concave interiors that only a hermit crab could ever know and love. And then there's the sight of the rainbow-colored stained glass
It looks
that
very
adorns the
alien.
walls, letting in some gorgeously colored light. This is what happens when a creative mind and talent like Senocian is given full artistic freedom.
It looks so cool
Number
though.
1. The Upside Down House. No need to adjust your screens. What you're seeing is real. Constructed in the lovely seaside resort of Tressenheide on the Pomeranian island of Usedom, the Upside Down House of Tressenheide was the first bottom-up dwelling to be built in Germany. That's right, the first, meaning there are
Why?
more than one of these wacky homes scattered about the region. It was the Polish architects
Is it
Claudius
just a
Koros
fun
and Sebastian Mikacek who cooked up these
idea?
unorthodox upside-down designs as part of the Die Welt Stepkopf, the World Upside Down project. The goal of the project was quite simple: give people a new perspective on everyday things. Things only get crazier when you step inside
Okay, that
this
makes
oddly
sense.
designed
Makes sense.
home, because when it comes to the Upside Down house, beauty is only skin deep. Everything on the inside is topsy-turvy too, except for the stairs leading to the attic. Stepping inside
So
is enough to make your
everything's
head
upside
spin,
down.
because everything from the sofas to the kitchen to plants and paintings on the wall is all inverted.
I thought that
Even the
people would
curtains are
actually
pinned to
live
the
here.
wall in such a way as to make you think gravity has betrayed you. Just make sure you don't flush the toilet. But if the upside downiness of the home isn't enough, the structure is built on a 6% incline. So from the outside, it gives the impression that the house fell from the heavens and onto the ground.
It's tilted a
But
bit.
since its completion in 2008, the house has been joined by the Hauskopf Uber on the neighboring island of Rügen
Uber
just 2
house.
years later in 2010. And like so many other oddly designed homes on this list, this home in Tressenheide was built purely with tourism in mind. So don't expect to hear about anyone signing an upside-down lease anytime soon.
I thought people would live there. But imagine if the insides were still topsy-turvy and people would live there. You just go in the house and you see a person just up on the ceiling, fucking sitting there. That would fuck me up.
I'll see you next time. Watch our binge-watching playlist if you'd
Oh
like to
shit,
watch
it's
all
done.
of our most popular top 15 videos. Grab a drink, grab a snack, and get ready to binge.
Sick. That was good. I like that. Cool houses. A lot of them are not livable. So I don't know why they were made.